Welcome to the EOB podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Benno, and unfortunately, Sin won't be joining us this week because he's feeling a bit under the weather. So it's just gonna be us, me and you, on this Wednesday afternoon. So let's get right down to the box office. So we have two new wide releases that opened last weekend. We have Ghost in the Shell, the live action, the big screen adaptation of that very influential anime, Japanese anime, Ghost in the Shell, starring Scarlett Johansson. You might have heard of some heat for the movie. The producers who cast her instead of an Asian actress in the role as the major. And then there is the Boss Baby, the new DreamWorks movie featuring a baby who is destined to become an executive of this baby producing factory, but he somehow went down the wrong chute and ended up becoming the third wheel, I guess, or second wheel into a family which has a little boy already, and he's like taking over the household with his demands and everything. And of course he can talk, and only the boy can hear him. The other families are oblivious to his antics. So we'll see how those two movies did compared to the movies that are still in theaters. Okay, let's get right down to it. So number one, The Boss Baby came in number one. It pulled in 50 million in its opening frame. Right now, the worldwide gross is 118 million, and it's opened in, I'm not sure how wide it is. Let's see. Okay, it's not that wide, but still, so far it's doing well. The numbers suggest that it's going to do well for DreamWorks. DreamWorks made a distribution deal with Fox, and this is another huge opening for a DreamWorks movie. Remember, we said even though the movie is not that well reviewed, The Boss Baby, DreamWorks has its fans. Let's see, 50% of Rotten Tomatoes. Compared to other DreamWorks offering, especially Pixar's and Disney's, 50% is not that great. But again, like I said in previous podcasts, DreamWorks Animation does have the fans, loyal fans, to turn out for these movies. And as I said, even though it seems the animation is more rounder, that's kind of similar to the animation produced by Pixar, for example. It's not these angly, jaggy things like the Croods, for example. I think this is more appealing, I guess, to a broader base. And DreamWorks Animation brand is still there. From the Shrek, from the Kung Fu Panda, so How to Train Your Dragon. So they have a lot of big brands that have a lot of fans, and the Boss Baby, I see, even though the critics might not think that this is great, but for kids, the standards are kind of lower, especially kids like to watch these movies, and for adults it might not be as enjoyable, right? But hey, this one is made for the little ones. So and the 50 million one, I guess they're convinced their parents to bring them along to see this movie. So yeah. I guess another hit for DreamWorks Animation, which beat out Beauty and the Beast. Speaking of Beauty and the Beast, it fell to number 2 over the weekend. With a 45 million take, the drop-off is around roughly 50%, so it's still holding up quite well. Remember, it opened to I think 174 million, and this second weekend the drop-off is around 48%, which is amazing hold for a movie that opened so huge. When a movie that's opened that huge, you expect a drop-off to be in the high 50s or even 60s or more, but below 50% is excellent, very good. And the third weekend, about 50%, still 49.8%, which is roughly 50%. It's still amazing. Let's see, for Beauty and the Beast right now, the domestic gross is 401 million. Worldwide is at 899. We said that this movie is probably gonna gross over 500 million, and worldwide gonna go over 1 billion. And Beauty and the Beast is really the crown jewel in the Disney animation, Disney's portfolio, really. For it to do so well, it's awesome for them, right? Disney is definitely celebrating. Okay, so let's move on to number 3, which is Ghost in the Shell. Okay, before we move on to Ghost in the Shell, let's see what our projection for The Boss Baby is with the number 1 movie. I said 35 million and Sen said 40. So obviously Sen is a bit closer, but we were both off for this movie. And I thought that Ghost in the Shell would be the bigger movie, but no, it turned out not to be true. The Boss Baby won it. Okay, now getting back to Ghost in the Shell, it came in number 3. with an 18.7 million debut. What can I say? It didn't open as well as I thought it would. Let's see. I said it probably could open in the 60s, which is way, 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 way off. And Sin said 25 to 30 million. So even though Sin is way lower in his projection, opening projections, it still misses the mark. Fell way below his and mine, especially to only pull in about 18.7 million. As to why, can't really say. I mean, we said it in the previous podcast that other movies has mined kind of like this genre, this cyberpunk genre, and especially this movie. You can see influences in The Matrix, right, and others. Do people really want to see something that is familiar to them? So I don't know, because I don't think it's the fault of Scarlett Johansson. Like, she can open movies. Her Lucy opened to 43 million, and this one obviously has a higher budget. But again, I don't know, maybe it's as Sin said, it's this weird mix of East-West influences that's kind of throwing people off. People might not want to, watch something that's as confusing. It does have some themes, about artificial intelligence, selflessness, awareness, etc. Robots gaining consciousness, for example. What is, life, and all these things. And maybe the trailer doesn't really want to give that away, or that they think that is too confusing, and they try to make it into a more action movie, kind of like Blade Runner, sort of, kind of. And maybe people turn off by that look. So we'll see how it goes. And the reviews for Ghost in the Shell, it's not that great, 45%. It's kind of typical for a genre action movie, right? But for Ghost in the Shell, which costs probably over 100 million to make, it's not good enough. Let's see, it costs 110 million to make, but we'll see how well it holds up, see if it's leggy enough to make that up. Let's see. And overseas is already grossed 40 million for worldwide take of 62 million. So yeah, we'll see how leggy this movie is. Scarlett Johansson is obviously a name. Ghost in the Shell is obviously a brand that's larger, I think, overseas, especially in Japan, than here. It might not be the death knell for this movie yet. I mean, domestically, assuming like it makes 2 to 3 times its opening. So it could probably close at, let's say if it's assuming 3 times, it's probably around 60 million or so. Not great, but again, if it does well, we'll see it'll make money for Paramount. But again, a kind of a misfire right here, at least domestically. I thought this movie would be bigger. I took a gamble on the 60 million opening, saying that it could project it, but I'm really not sure. I can't read this, movie, because it's kind of a new thing, like with Scarlett Johansson leading a big action sci-fi movie. She did do the there's that Lucy movie, right? That did really well. But, her other big budget movies are part of an ensemble with like the Avengers and other superhero movies within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this is kind of a interesting thing for Scarlett Johansson to see if she can really, really carry a movie out, outside of some thing. Maybe, yeah, like I said, maybe this movie is just like too weird. Or as Sen said, this movie is too weird mixture for people to grab a hold of, and they didn't really get a good sense of what this movie is about, at least for the general audience. Like people who watched the influential anime, the animation, were blown away by it at that time, right? People think that the anime is is obviously better, but I don't think casting Scarlett Johansson in this role play any part in its poor performance at all. We can talk more about it with Sen when he gets back, when he's feeling better, maybe next week. All right, moving along to number 4 is Power Rangers. It pulled in about 14.2 million over the weekend. It dropped 64% from the previous week. I guess it's mainly because it targets the same audience, kind of, sort of, as the Boss Baby and maybe even Ghost in the Shell. Power Rangers, a sci-fi action movie, and Power Rangers tend toward the lower. It is a superhero movie, right? But the age group, the target age group is lower. So far, domestic gross is 64 million, and on the worldwide basis, it crossed 100 million. So, and the budget is 100 million. So we will see how well it will do overseas. You can see that it's experiencing a huge drop off in the second weekend. It opened in the 40s and 64% drop off. You could say it's kind of front loaded, and the competition is going to get fiercer with the other movies coming out along, in the coming weeks. That's kind of target the same group. So we can expect huge drop off here. So we'll see what happens with the Power Rangers, see if they're going to go forward with another movie. Really, this movie depends on the overseas market as well, because like domestic, it's probably going to be near 100. Overseas, it's already, let's see, it's not open that wide yet, so it still has ways to go. So we'll see what happens. Okay, moving on to number 5 is Kong Skull Island. It put in 8.6 million, experienced a 42% drop off from the previous week. Domestic gross is 147, and the worldwide take is 419. The budget is 185, so it's doing well. So they're moving ahead with King Kong versus Godzilla, and did this because they're moving into a more action-packed movie instead of, like Sen said, a Beauty and the Beast story. They're moving with action. That's what fans want to see, and that's what they're gonna get with this one and with the Godzilla movie. All right, number 6 is Logan. It pulled in about 6.1 million over the weekend. Drop off is about 41% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross right now is 211, and the worldwide take is 586. Logan is billed as the final movie with final standalone Wolverine movie with Hugh Jackman. Of course, he said that he'll return, make cameos in ensemble movies with, maybe in Deadpool, with Avengers, etc. But he said that Logan, is the final one that for a standalone movie. Keeping those muscles is hard, Okay. Logan's also the highest grossing Wolverine movie. And the R rating definitely helped it out, like Deadpool. So we can expect to see more superhero movies with an R rating, as long as it costs for it. Of course, they're not trying to make every movie R rated, but for some material like Deadpool or Wolverine, which the character needs an R rating, they can do it. It proves that the movie can survive with an R rating. All right, number 7 is Get Out, the social horror movie, the surprise hit of 2017. It pulled in 5.7 million over the weekend. The drop-off is actually pretty low as well, 36%. The movie is only made for 4.5 million, and domestic gross right now is 156 million. And worldwide is about 10 million. Of course, this movie appeals more to the domestic audience than overseas because it is a social commentary. People overseas might not get it as much, right? But here it's huge. It's the surprise hit of 2017. And number 8 is Life, the sci-fi horror movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. Pulled in about 5.6 million over the weekend. The drop off is about 56%. This is the second weekend, so it doesn't seem like it's lingering theaters much. Domestic gross right now is 22 million, and worldwide is at 51 million. Let's see. Then the budget is 58 million, which is kind of modest for a sci-fi movie. And as we said, Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal are not known to open huge movies. Their movies are not known to open huge outside of, like, for example, Deadpool. And their movie, usually opens in, the 12-15 million range and kind of stay leggy in theaters, and make us, and close at the 50 or so million domestically. So we'll see if this movie can reach it, if it doesn't get pushed out by the more high profile movie coming out later. But it seems like it's on its way to a typical Jake Gyllenhaal movie. All right, number 9, Chips, is the big screen adaptation of the TV shows in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, it's not doing well. It opened to about 7 million, and in its second weekend it pulled in about 4 million, drop off of nearly 49%. So domestic gross is 14 million, budget is modest, 25 million. So it's going to make money for Warner Brothers, right? If not domestic, overseas, and home video. But hey, this is not the big screen adaptation of the performance. It's not the one that Warner Brothers is hoping for. They hope to get a kind of like the 21 Jump Street adaptation, right? But it didn't turn out that way. So yeah, a miss for them. But again, nobody asked for a 21 Jump Street movie, but sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. Depends on how they work it, right? And of course that Baywatch movie is coming out, so we'll keep an eye on that. But that one has The Rock in it. Anything The Rock touches turn to gold. So that one might be. But Chips only had Dax Shepard and Michael Pena and Adam Brody, so not star material right there. Rounding out the top 10 is The Zookeeper's Wife, opened in about 541 theaters. It pulled in about 3.3 million over the weekend. The movie stars Jessica Chastain as I guess said zookeeper's wife, who uses the zoo to help out people who are escaping from the Nazis during World War II. That one did well, considering it's in limited release. Per theater average is kind of decent, only about 6,000 per theater average, so it's not great in the grand scheme of things, but it is kind of decent. So, and reviews is only 60%. So, and the worst play is a smaller movie, but it's not getting the reviews for it. So there it goes. All right, that rounds out the top 10. How about we move on to the new releases? I believe we have 3 wide releases this weekend. We have Smurfs, The Lost Village, so it is the animated Smurfs movie, CGI. Then there's Going Out in Style. It's the kind of grumpy old man caper, starring Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, and Alan Arkin. So those guys try to rob a bank in their old age as a comedy. Yeah, so we'll talk about that. And then there is The Case for Christ by the same people who made God Is Not Dead, I believe. And that one's playing in over 1,000 theaters. So let's start off with Smurfs, The Lost Village. The previous 2 Smurfs movie is a mix of live action and CGI. For the Smurfs, The Lost Village, this one, which is sort of, I guess, a reboot, right? They kind of threw away the humans. With Neil Patrick Harris et al, right? And they're just focusing on the Smurfs and Gargamel and Azrael and just, I guess, pure CGI animation. So no human characters except the voices. Let's see. Right now, the Smurfs Village has 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. With about how many reviews? With about 26 reviews. So not great considering, but again, this movie is targeted toward the kids, so the standards are lower. Adults might not like it, but hey, just like with the Boss Baby, it could go over well with the kids. As a comparison, right? The Smurfs, the first movie, had a 35 million opening, went on to make 142 domestic, 563 million worldwide. The second Smurfs movie dropped to had a 17 million opening, 71 million domestic, and 347 million worldwide. So you can see that the 2 live action CGI mix, we're losing steam, right? Those 2 movies were losing steam. The sequel pulled in less than the first movie, and then they kind of restarted with just pure CGI, going with pure CGI. So will they be successful? I don't know. This seems like it could work. It could work because they don't have the humans to deal with, the live action humans to deal with, and this is more in line with what you see in the cartoons. But it's the brand's still big with the small ones. So I mean, there's this nostalgia going with the adults taking their kids to this movie, right? And then there's still the Boss Baby in theaters. So first movie, 35 million, second movie, 17 million opening. And if we go by the rule that the previous movie kind of affect the opening of the next movie, it doesn't bode well for this movie, right? But with this new reboot, it could, like I say, the kids might see this movie different. They have they might not have seen the previous 2 movies, so they don't know, right? And I say standards are lower for kids and for adults. I think this movie could probably open in the 25 to 30 million range because, Smurfs is still a huge brand, right? Adults, the parents might still remember, and, might want to bring the kids to it and might not be objectionable to have the kids experience the Smurfs. All right, let's move on to going out in style. It's kind of like, like I say, grumpy old men's three pensioners who, like really old, got, their I guess their monthly payments taken away from them, and they decided to, rob a bank, and I guess comedy ensues or not, right? There's no reviews yet, so which does not bode well for this movie. It doesn't seem that funny to me from the trailer. It's just like old jokes about old people, and this is just kind of like a paycheck for all the three leads involved: Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Alan Arkin. I don't see this movie doing that well. This is a movie target toward the older crowd, and they don't usually go rush out in the opening weekend to watch these movies. With the names involved, I could see it open in the 10 to 15 million range because, like I said, this group doesn't appeal to the younger crowd, the teens. It does not appeal to the kids, and the people who this movie does appeal to don't usually rush out on opening weekend. So there you go, maybe 10 to 15 million, maybe on the lower range of that. Okay, finally, The Case for Christ. It's again a faith-based movie about a reporter who is searching, to see if Jesus exists or not. It stars Mike Vogel, Erica Christensen, Faye Dunaway, Robert Forster. As with these new religious themed movies, money, it looks, like money has been spent to produce this throwback look. But as for how well it will do, I don't know, right? I mean, like we said, the faith-based genre is here to stay, but we don't know which movie you could say the faithful will support. And this is by the same people who made God Is Not Dead. But will this movie be as successful? I don't know. I really don't know, because it's tough to say, right? Because they do these grassroots advertisement for these movies, by going to churches, etc., and appealing to the base there. But will they turn out for this movie? I don't know, really. I don't know. For comparison, God Is Not Dead had a 9 million opening, went on to make 60 million domestic. God's Not Dead 2 opened to 7 million and went on to make 20 million. So you can see that, even with the God Is Not Dead, series, I guess, with two movies, this series, you can see the drop. So, The Case for Christ kind of appealed to the same group, preaching to the choir, so to speak. Will they turn out for this movie? Like I say, I don't know. I think it's probably going to open somewhere in the 5 to 7 million range, right? Because this movie is only opened in roughly 1,000 theaters, 1,000 locations. So there's a cap on how much they can make, and sometimes they might be all tapped out. Even though this movie is kind of released for the Easter holidays. Again, I don't know. It could be widely successful, or it could be like the other Christian theme movies, kind of middling, 7 million range. But this one does have some names in it, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's it for this podcast. Thanks for listening. See you next week.